Today we're going to talk about sourcing and possibly bring up some things that could be hurting your business, or I can also talk maybe about some things that would help you source better, break out of your comfort zone, get the things you need to make a good profit. And we're just going to talk a lot about different aspects of sourcing. And sourcing is very important on the Crazy Picker Life with Wheeler, Dealer, and Banana Peeler. Good evening. This is Dealer with the Crazy Picker Life. It is Tuesday, my day off. And I had a good day, but today we're going to talk about sourcing. And let's see, what did I do today? Well, typical off day for me. I haven't had many off days in the last 10 years, but I started more recently taking an extra day off a week. I don't work on Sundays. I've never worked on Sundays. That's an important day for me, both family and faith. And recently, I decided to start taking one additional day off a week, and typically that's a Tuesday or a Thursday. So today was a day off. I did a lot of homeschool stuff, caught up on a lot of schoolwork with my kids, went running with my boys, played a little bit of Go Fish with my 5-year-old, answered some questions on business stuff with my wife Lon, had supper with the family, went shopping with Wheeler for office food, got my oil changed in my van at Kansas Quick Lube for the first time. That was exciting. I don't know what else I did, but it was a busy day for a day off, I'll tell you that. I did get to sleep in a little bit. All right, so let's talk about sourcing. Now, there's a good chance that you, and by you, I mean whoever's watching here, you either have plenty of good inventory or you don't have enough good inventory. Now, I'm making an assumption there that if you're watching this video, that you run some sort of a buy-sell operation. And I could also include other people that are considering a buy-sell operation and want to learn about it, or maybe you're just, part-time, or you just buy and sell sporadically. And then there's a whole other group, I think, that watches this channel just because it's sort of an adventure, and I don't mind that either. So if you stroll around YouTube, there are probably, let's say, 100 channels on YouTube where the person, or sometimes it's a couple people who are running that channel and showing off their buy-sell stuff, they seem to be doing pretty well. Maybe it's more than 100. Some of them come and go, and for the top 100, let's say, maybe there's another 200, 300, 400, 500 that have other degrees of success, or they just have limited videos. And there's all different kinds of people buying and selling all different kinds of stuff, all different kinds of ways, okay? Most everybody's familiar with eBay and Amazon, Etsy. There's other ones I've heard of. There are a number of places that you can sell on the internet, including your own website, probably some other ways. You can incorporate it with print media, whatever. People also sell at flea markets, and flea markets can be called swap meets. Flea markets, there's other names, obviously, rummage sales and estate sales. I mean, there's other ways to sell your goods, right? Some people just donate stuff and they get a tax advantage. There's ways to do that too. Then on the buying end, the sourcing end, there's as many places, for stuff for sale, I couldn't even name them all. I don't know if I've been to them all. I don't know if I've utilized them all, but I've used quite a few different ways to buy inventory. When I started this business, I came out of the retail arena, and part of my job was buying inventory for a health, food, and vitamin business. And I did that for 10 years. And so I was dealing with business to business mainly. We had built it up to 5,000 items. We had probably 50 regular vendors. And so my job was to buy things on special pricing, bulk pricing, volume pricing, buy from one vendor at one time and then another vendor another time, search out new vendors, all that kind of stuff. And when I came into the eBay business, a couple of things carried over. I was looking at it from a different perspective. I was looking at it from a smaller profit, and I was looking at bigger ticket items. And I think that's why I got into a couple of things like selling DVDs back in the early part of the turn of the century, around 2002, 2003, when DVDs were still, there was still a different channel for marketing those. They had not shown up completely mainstream at Walmart yet. And so I was able to create a presence, an entity that allowed me to buy from some of the distribution channels that were business to business, even though I was not a video store, I was not a catalog, I was something that was relatively new. I was an online venue, and they didn't necessarily want to sell to somebody on eBay. They still frowned upon that. And so I found a way around that. I kept my pricing standard. I set some contracts up with them. The margin was slim, and the amount of inventory that you really needed to have on hand to do it was immense. And so it quickly became apparent that that was not going to be a long-term thing. And what really knuckled it down is DVDs that a few years previous would have sold for $20 were now showing up at Walmart for $10.99, $9.99, $8.99. You just could not compete with it. They became a commodity. Air purifiers were a good break for me. I was able to buy those typically half price and sell them at double. I thought that was pretty good. And it really was pretty good because I was buying them at $100, $150, $200 and doubling my money. And there was some work involved. There was certainly some work involved in sourcing them, mainly using a tool to scroll through Craigslist and find sellers, and then work some of those leads to find other sellers. And I would buy on eBay as well and sell back on eBay in some cases. I would find people who were selling on eBay and were not selling very well, and I'd say, hey, I see you're selling on eBay. Do you have a bunch of machines? And I'd buy them out right there. And so there were quite a few ways to do that. Not everybody wanted to sell these things on eBay that was selling them on there. They just didn't feel like they had any other options. So that was a whole different sourcing and selling. And then, that thing fell apart and I needed to find something else. And I always was buying and selling information online. I'd buy courses on marketing, on attitude, on growing your business, on incorporating your business, on selling, on negotiating. I would take all these courses. I would buy them and sell them on eBay typically. I would go to a few seminars a year. on different things. When the internet came in, I bought some things on that. I bought some things on real estate. I bought a few things on Get Rich Quick. You know, I looked into all that stuff. And one of the people that I bumped into, a guy named Jim Cockrum, had some real good stuff about making money on the internet. And I ended up getting involved with a buying and selling test strip business where I had to pay a fee. I got some information. I got hooked in with a group, and off we went. That business had pros and cons. I actually had a call center where people would call in from classified advertising. Hey, I buy test strips. Call my number. They would call in. They would get a call center, and the call center would qualify them and take their information. And some people would not qualify and some would. The ones that would qualify, I would send kits out to, and then they would send their test strips, and I would send them money, and then I would sell the test strips. These are diabetic test strips. And diabetic test strips, just like anything else, there's better ones, there's worse ones. There's plenty to learn. The cost of advertising was relatively high, and it was front-weighted. In other words, you needed to pay the advertising, then you would get some product, and then the product would keep flowing in for a long, long time, but the cost up front was pretty heavy. So that was a cash flow problem business from the beginning. I sold the test strips on eBay. I sold the test strips on Amazon. I built up a contact list of people who bought them off eBay. And, for a while I was doing heavy business. A lot of people got in on that business, and it drove the prices up. You couldn't buy the test strips as inexpensively, and then it drove the sale price down because there was more players in the game. So the margins tightened. The advertising game did not work as well, and it just became a flooded market. A lot of things that I wouldn't call them fads, but a lot of things that are sort of one horse ponies. What did I say the other day? Oh gosh. One trick ponies. There you go. One trick ponies are hard to keep going and differentiate from your competition. And so, there was very little way other than price and paying a lot for inventory that you could differentiate yourself. And then somehow you had to live on the margin, and it became a little bit like the DVD adventure where the margin just was not as attractive. There was also pressure, and there is always pressure from the pharmaceutical companies, the doctors, the pharmacies, all those places. Nobody wants you to sell secondary test strips. There's a lot of measures put in place, and so there are hurdles to jump, there are gray areas, all that kind of stuff, a lot of regulation, and a lot of pitfalls. The pharmaceutical companies obviously have some reason to be interested in selling test strips. It's a huge money business for them. Obviously there's some benefit to the end users and everything else, and there's some integrity. Nobody wants to buy test strips that don't work because they've been kept in the sun. So there's a whole bunch of different issues. It was not an issue-free business. Now, as long as you did the right things, you were okay, but there were a lot of people that were not able to do the right things, and so it made problems for everybody else as well. Now, that was a different way to source and to sell inventory. Started to pick up on the idea around here of local rummage sales, and then out here there's quite a few what are called citywide rummage sales, where everybody in the town has a rummage sale the same day. There's also like highway sales where it can be 500 miles of rummage sales. There's thrift stores out here, some. There's estate sales out here. There's a lot of auctions out here, mainly for farm stuff. There's antique stores in certain areas. There's variety stores that have some old stock that's been there forever and ever and ever, because some things out here just are slow to change. We found a camera display from the 80s in a store here that had just been in the corner for a long time, like 20 years after film went out. And there it was, and we just bought the whole thing, and the people said, wow, it's been there for a while. No kidding, huh? So we made some money there. And, as we did more and more and more what I'd call face-to-face sourcing, we found some niches to be in. We found some places we like to go to. We found leads to go to other places. We started traveling farther and farther. And we found out really that there's just unlimited opportunity for sourcing. Okay, we're in the camera business right now, vintage camera business, new camera business, old camera business, all the accessories, everything camera related, video recorder related, you name it, right? Print that has to do with camera, camera manuals, all that stuff. Huge market. We're also in the watch market. We haven't been in the watch market for very long, but that's also a pretty good technical market. I'm in the general merchandise arena, buy and sell anything of value that's old. I do also pick up new old stock items that I can find. I do not do a lot of retail arbitrage, although I find some of those items onesie, twosie, 5 at a time, 10 at a time in some of the places we go. We buy from a bunch of different sources. We buy a lot, we sell a lot. Typically, we probably do 1 day of buying, 1 full day of buying, and 2 weeks of listing. That might be our ratio. It might even be 1 day of buying versus 3 weeks of listing. We can buy a lot. And I know that there are people out there that say, how the heck do you buy all that stuff? Where do you find it? Well, we always bought a lot, but the quality of stuff that we buy has went up and up and up and up. And I'll go back to that story. I've told it before, and this can give you some perspective on what I think about buying. If you have, I'm going to do it a real quick one here. There's an art class, and one side of the class is told to make 1 pot. Turn it in at the end of the art class, 1 piece of pottery. You'll be judged on that. Spend all your time. Make sure you get 1 good pot. Make it however you want. The other side of the class is to make as many pots as they can in the allotted time. Make as many as you can. You're going to be judged on quantity. And it turns out that, interestingly enough, the best pots came from the side that made the quantity, as opposed to the side where they just spent the whole semester making 1. And I think buying inventory is the same way. You want to get better at buying inventory and sourcing. Do as much as humanly possible, and you will get better. It may take longer if you're dumber. It may take less time if you're smarter. I don't say that to be mean to anybody. If it's taken you 10 years and you're still spinning your wheels, you just got to start paying attention, because every time you do something wrong in your inventory buying, there's a sign. It doesn't sell. Or, worst case, you lose money, or it's broken, or it took too long to clean up. whatever it is, when that happens, it's like hitting your head with a hammer. Bam! At that point, you need to say, that didn't work very well, did it? This is how you get smarter. That didn't work very well, did it? And you pull the embedded hammer out of your head and you say, well, what didn't work about that? And then you try to do better, but don't make the same mistake over and over and over, right? That's how you get better. So, this video is not about where do you go. It's not about what do you buy. It's not about how do you get the best price. It's not a list of things to buy. But really, if you are not sourcing, in other words, finding the type of inventory that you want, the goose that continues to lay the golden eggs, why do you think that is? Some people have lots of inventory. They make it seem easy, right? Some people might even think Wheeler and I and Banana Peeler have it easy, that somehow this inventory just shows up, They always seem to find stuff. How do they do that? Some people might think that. There are other people on the internet, other channels that I watch. When I see some of their hauls, I'm like, man, you make it look easy. How do you do that? I mean, I say that at a few channels, and everybody that's putting videos up there often, every dog has their day, right? Sometimes people get scores and things like that. Some people, I think, only show their scores. They don't show enough failures. There is a Wheeler and Dealer throwaway pile. Maybe I should be showing that more, right? I think we've shown some of it, like the totes of things in the camera business, the totes and the totes and the totes of stuff that we lot up. And, we throw quite a bit of stuff away, too. That's part of the business. So why are you not finding good stuff or enough stuff? Other people are. And, even beyond that, if you are finding a lot of stuff, either it's good stuff or it's not so good stuff, it doesn't matter. You always want to find better stuff. I mean, who wouldn't want to buy and sell, say, 10 things a month and make $1,000 profit each, right? $10,000 profit. 10 items, list 10 items in the first couple days, sit back, wait for the orders to roll in. End of the month, you sold 10 things, $10,000. Do it again, right? Well, the reason that we don't do that is because to find those 10 items would take more time or money than we're willing to invest. It's out there. I may move towards, that type of a business model with these beer signs. I don't think I can buy and sell 10 items in a month and sell them by the end of the month and make $1,000 each. But my eyes have been opened enough where I think if I bought 30 items a month for a while, there would come a point where I would start selling probably one a day and maybe have $200 profit a day. That would be pretty cool. I have not put that plan in motion yet, and I haven't, done that yet, but I see that it's possible. That is still a little out of my comfort zone. When I buy some of these beer signs, like I bought this one here, battery check. I bought this one here and it's got there we go. Oh, I bought that for $285. That's a little out of my comfort zone just to plunk that down every day sight unseen. I'm probably going to sell it. I got to do some research, but I'm probably going to list it for $4.99, $99 plus shipping and weight. But doing that, buying, say, one of those every single day, that's a little out of my comfort zone right now. I'm not saying I won't do it. It's just I have not quite grown to that point. So one of the questions you should be asking yourself if you're not finding the right things or enough of the right things is what's holding you back from stepping outside of your comfort zone. I can think of a couple of things. For me, the kind of inventory that I'm looking for to get into these beer signs, let's say it's $300 a day I'm buying. Well, how long is it going to take me to get to the point where I'm recouping all my money? Probably not that long, but let's say I needed to go 60 days before I was breaking even or something like that, okay? 60 days times 300, that's $18,000. That's a little out of my comfort zone. Now, along the way, certainly I'm going to be selling some. And so, is that type of fear factor, is that a real fear factor, or is that one that I'm imposing on myself? Do I have that kind of money to plunk out there? Well, yes and no. I mean, certainly I have cash flow issues just like anybody else. Could I do it? Sure, I could do it. It's a business plan that I've laid out in my mind, but not necessarily on paper, and I need to do it on paper. I've been talking a lot about it, and I've been experimenting with it. I'm just not full into it yet. But I'm not really here to talk about me and some of my business plans. I'm here to talk about you and your business plans, okay? I use mine for examples. But let's say, okay, if you have fear of spending money on inventory, that's one thing. If you have no money to spend on inventory, that's another thing. There's a whole bunch of subjects we could talk about there. I mean, I understand sometimes a spouse gets it, sometimes another spouse doesn't. I understand that you might be so tight that you can barely scrape $100 a month to go invest in inventory, and when you do, you have to turn that stuff over real quick, and then the next month you barely have 100 again. I understand that can be the way it is. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different variations on the money thing, right? The other things that can be holding you back is fear. Fear of talking to people. I like to sell on the internet. I really do. I like to sell on the internet because it is not people to people, face to face, right? I did that. I did customer service. I did insurance work where I'm meeting with people, safety inspections where I'm meeting with people. I sold copy machines. I sold air purifiers. I was on the phone talking to people 10 hours a day for 5 years. I've done jobs like that. I've done businesses like that. Gosh, I did carpet cleaning where you got to watch your P's and Q's because people don't want their carpet wrecked. And you got to do a lot of, damage control, visual face-to-face work there. I prefer to sell on the internet, not people to people. All those things, even though I can do them and I forced myself to learn and get good at them, it was always out of my comfort zone. Now, the same thing can be said about sourcing. If you're only going, let's say, to thrift stores, that's pretty easy because you walk in, you stroll around, you shuffle through some stuff, you pick out some stuff, and you go. Can you make a lot of money on that? Sure you can. There's very little face-to-face with people, so that's maybe within your comfort zone. Now, going to the swap meet, or the flea market where there's vendors with used stuff out, laying out, some of them are intimidating. You go in there and you talk to those kind of people, and they want to get the most out of it, and you want to get the least out of it. You want to pay the least for it. There's a lot of techniques to bundle stuff. You got to look it over. There's pressure. There's people around you wanting to grab the same stuff you're grabbing. That can get you out of your comfort zone. But guess what? There's better stuff there. Or there can be. I've bought enough losers where I did make a very good profit, and I bought broken stuff, and I bought, stinky stuff, and I bought items that look like something and they turn out to be nothing because they have a made in China sticker on the bottom. Where when I go to a flea market, it's easy for me to find the 10, 20, 30 things I want to buy. The challenging part is negotiating for them and the people-to-people aspect. But I force myself to get good at that too, and I actually, believe it or not, I do enjoy the game of that a little bit. Some would find that intimidating, right? But let me ask you this. If you're buying something for $1 at a thrift store and you get it home and you can sell it for $7.99, hey, that's a decent profit. Let's say when you're all said and done, let's say you're making $4. So you bought something for $1, you made $4. Well, that's not bad. But at the end of the month, let's say your profit is like $1,000, and you worked your freaking tail off because you probably had to ship a couple hundred items, and you had to go out and find all these $1 or $2 items. Nothing against that if you like to do that, but there's some of you out there that don't want to do that at that level, and you realize that if you're going to make $2,000 a month, you're going to have to work twice as hard doing what you're doing. So on the other hand, what if you could go out and you pay $5 and sell it for $30, and when it's all said and done, let's say you make $18, and you realize you only have to do that 25% as much. So in other words, you found better items, right? So now you're doing 25% of the work that you used to do, and you're making the same money. Now there's other ways to do that, but what might be holding you back is you getting out of your comfort zone and going some other places. Oh man, my Schlitz sign is blinking. Must be my bulb. Could be the starter in there. It's funny how cold temperature, even in controlled environments with the heat going on and off, it kills lights. It kills old beer lights. You have to go in for repair. So, this is obviously all over the place, this discussion I'm having, but there's other problems out there. Some people don't have a lot of time, and for that you have to make choices. Some people don't have a wide range of area that you can go. Maybe you don't have a vehicle that can go out of town. Maybe you've got kids with you, all those kind of things. I understand, but here's what you have to do. If you're over here and you're starting this eBay business, you're doing this eBay business, you're excelling at this eBay business, and by eBay business I could mean Amazon, Etsy, whatever, however you're doing this buy-sell business, you're over here, right? But you're dissatisfied, which, hey, look, I'm over here too. I'm never 100% satisfied. Our results are good, but I'm never 100% satisfied, so I go through this same process from time to time. Unless I get lazy and comfortable, which can be bad too. So you're over here, but you want to improve it to over here, right? Somewhere. Get a new camera angle. You really have to do some soul searching and identify what's holding you back. I mean, if it's money, then you got to find a way to have more money for inventory. You can't keep buying the same things and expect different results. You can't keep going to the same places and expect different results. You can't keep doing the same things over and over and expect different results. I think that's called insanity, right? So you need to examine, if it's money, you got to find a way to have more money. So some people say, well, can't do that. Well, then it's not going to change. I mean, that's it. So if you have $100 to spend on inventory a month and you want to make $2,000 a month in this business, it's not going to happen. You might have to get a job for a while. You might have to cut out XYZ for a while. You might have to ask for help from somebody from the outside. I don't think it's a great way to go unless you really are ready, but you can borrow some money. I don't recommend it. You're probably better off taking on a partner who has some money, but you have the experience, or doing consignment work of some kind where you're not fully invested in those items, but you don't get all the benefit. I wouldn't recommend brand new person, not really getting it, not really been around the block. I would not recommend borrowing money. I borrowed money to get where I'm at, but only after I knew I could do it. And therefore it became a business decision as opposed to a rolling of the dice. Okay? If you're afraid of wheeling and dealing and talking to people, if you don't like walking into pawn shops, if you don't like answering ads on Craigslist, if you don't like making phone calls, if you don't like putting ads in the paper and having people call you, if you don't like exploring these ways in your area that it's going to take to find the good stuff, if you don't like doing that, you got two choices. Learn to like it, which means copy some people that already are doing it, and go through the steps, the pain, the rejection, the feeling of fear, all that stuff. Get out of your comfort zone and do it. Or find somebody that's doing it in a different arena and partner up with them. For example, let's say there's a antique store. You go in there, you like their stuff, it's all high priced. Can't make any money just buying the stuff. You've talked to them, you tried to negotiate a little bit, you built a little bit of relationship, you found out they're not selling on eBay. They got the funnels with stuff coming in. Why don't you partner with them? Why don't you say, hey, look, I do eBay. I've been doing it for a while. You don't have to tell them you're selling $7.99 scented candles, socks, gerbil sweaters, whatever. I mean, whatever. You're not satisfied here. That's why we're talking about this. Whatever you're selling that you're not satisfied with, you want to move into something else. You know how to sell on eBay. You could partner with them. Take 30%, 40% of the profits, do all the work, show them how it would work, do that. You don't have to talk to people, you get good stuff into your shop. Might have to come up with a contract with them. You might need to build some trust. You might need to start with the crappy stuff that's in the back room, whatever, right? We actually did some consignment work for quite a while until we could afford our own inventory. We built a lot of confidence doing that, though. We also learned a lot about items. This was part of the going through a lot of items initially. So initially, we bought some cameras from this guy, and he also had a huge toy collection and whatever, and I ended up doing the consignment work for him. And some of it was good, some of it wasn't good, but I learned a lot about what to buy and what not to buy. I also did some coin work for a guy and sold a bunch of his coins, and then he didn't like how much I was getting for him, and that deal went bad, but I learned a lot about coins. I also did some consignment work for a local scrapper years ago, and that was okay until, again, I started to see all this stuff around, and I'm like, why would I list your thing for $30 and take 30% of the profits, which turned to be maybe $5, when I could buy it for $5, sell it for $30, and make 20 myself? So I can make 5 doing it, or I can make 20. So once you start getting in the flow of actually doing it, and this is key, if you're not in the flow of doing this business, you got to get in the flow, right? You got to do a lot of it if you really want to make this a full-time thing. Now, some people just want to make it a part-time thing. And if you have money and you want to make it a part-time thing, that's one way. If you don't have much money and want to make it a part-time thing, that's another way. I can't go off in all these tangents. There's just too much to talk about. So we did some consignment work. It actually quickly led to finding other stuff. And really, in my experience, we talked about it a couple shows ago. I did the air purifiers. That ended more or less badly because I was just doing the air purifiers. I could not rely on that long time. The test strips, same thing. It was a market that for the most part came in and went on a big scale. And so I knew I needed to get into a wider market where there was more stuff available. It was going to be an ongoing market. It had been a market. In other words, these things were bought and sold by normal people for years and years and years, and it was going to continue. And we got into the cameras. We got into the general vintage merchandise, which, is just every category. And we got into the watches. I got into the whole beer memorabilia. And then more recently, I got into the old, burping beer. I got into the old expensive beer signs. But, we got into the flow of it. How many items have I bought and sold in the last 5 years? Oh my goodness. I guess just rough math, let's just say let's just take a low average. 400 a month times 12 is 4,800. Let's call that 5,000. 25,000 items. It's like the example of the art class with the pots. I've made 25,000 pots. My pots are starting to look pretty good. If I would have just, waited 5 years and tried to buy one pot and buy and sell that, I would not have the experience that I have now. So what else is holding you back? It can be money. Money can be solved. We've talked a little bit about that. It can be fear, fear of failure, fear of talking to people. Here's another thing you can do. You might not have family that you can partner with, but most people know people. What if you went up to one of those people and you said, hey Joe, hey Sue, you might have known I run this eBay business. I've been doing it for a while. I want to expand. How would you like to partner up? And if you're a person that's maybe, say, fearful of going new places or talking to people or things like that, that you're not that person, but Joe or Sue is. Joe or Sue is the person who's not afraid to talk to anybody. Joe or Sue strikes up conversations with anybody. Joe or Sue is just one of those people that's a trailblazer. Well, they may also not know how to do anything on the internet, let's say. Or maybe they just want to put an extra couple $100 in their pocket a month. Partner up with that person. Let them be your mouthpiece. You be the person behind the scenes looking things up on your smartphone, making the decisions, making the money decisions, and then you sick them. Joe, Sue, go get them. Now, I can negotiate with the best of them. I can get belly to belly with anybody, whatever that means. But I send my boys in there now because it's work, and I just sit back and I just watch them do it, and then I critique them a little bit, or sometimes I go in and sweep up the deal, or sometimes I go in and play bad cop, good cop. But I don't have to do the negotiating all anymore. It is a lot of energy. It is a lot of work. You always got to be on, you know. But if you partner up with somebody, now it could be somebody as close as your spouse, and maybe, maybe you married into a marriage where your spouse is a little bit opposite that you are. Mine is, and we're starting to see some of the skills that we can use in our business back and forth. And it's a good thing, because our business is getting so big, I don't want to hire to the outside. But I'm going to have to, because I'm going insane if I don't, right? You can only work yourself into insanity so far. Even Dealer here can only hit his head against the wall so many times, and then all of a sudden he realizes, wait a minute, I've hit my head against this wall 1,000 times. How come nothing new is happening? Duh, because that's how it works. That's how the universe works. Things don't change unless you change. So, just another example, we'll go to the flea market, and there are days at the flea market where I don't feel like talking to people. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep. And so I just turn Wheeler and Banana Peeler loose on them. And there's other days I feel like going in there and buying everything and charging in there. And they're practically holding me back from negotiating so much because I fill up the van. But so a partner's not a bad deal. Now there are downsides with partners too. And there may come a time where you say, hey, Joe and Sue did this so many times in front of me. It isn't that bad. I even tried it a couple of times. I enjoy it. You might just cut that partnership loose. You don't have to have a lifelong business partner. But we're talking about what's holding you back from sourcing better items. So we talked about money. That shouldn't hold you back. You just have to get creative. If you're worried about spending $10 or $100 or $1,000 on items, buy more less cost items. Just build your confidence. If you have fears, that's another thing. If you have a spouse that doesn't get it and you feel that's limited, if you have kids and they don't get it and that's limited, you're going to have to find some creative ways to get around that too. You can bring your kids with you. You can bring your spouse with you. Maybe they'll get interested then. Not everybody's going to be able to do this. That's the other thing. I mean, I think you could, but realistically, not everybody's going to be able to do this unless you're willing, in a sense, to change a little bit and rock the boat a little bit once in a while. Get out of your comfort zone once in a while. This is a business just like any other, that if you want to stay in your comfort zone, you're going to get the same results as everybody else that stays in their comfort zone. How many people watch the American Pickers? Million an episode? I don't know what the show is. It's an extremely popular show. I don't know if it's leveled off at all. I've stopped watching it a few years back. I don't know why, but I did. I guess when they started selling me Subway, sandwiches right on the show, and I started noticing that they're doing all their little things in between on green screens and stuff like that, I was starting to get a little, all right, I still like the show, but I'm living it now. So I guess, but anyway, here's my point. 1 million people are watching that or more an episode. How many are actually pickers? How many kind of feel like pickers and want to be pickers, and they want some of the excitement and the thrill and maybe the money, you know. Oh my goodness, they bought that for $350 and they're going to sell it for $1,350? Are you kidding me? Who wouldn't want that? But see, not a lot of them are doing anything about it because doing that is out of their comfort zone. Their comfort zone is on the couch. So if you want to be more like the American pickers, or if you want to be more like the retail arbitrage Supra pickers, or if you want to buy from, you know, storage units like the Storage Pros, you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, whatever that means. Get over your fears, get over your money woes, become more disciplined in your work ethic if possible, if that's needed. Become more focused, develop some skills. I mean, step out, you know. So I talk in a lot of general terms. I try to give some specific stories and examples. But really, you know, this is supposed to be about sourcing. Really, it's more about you. Because if you're not sourcing the right stuff, it's not the stuff, it's you. That's hard to hear. You know, you're not buying the right stuff. You're not going the right places. You're not saying the right things. You're not talking to the right people. Let's talk about that a minute. It took us a while, Wheeler and I, to learn how to get to the decision maker in XYZ selling location, okay? I'm going to give you an example. It's not a very good example, but I don't want to give away all my tricks, because we go into stores, we go into antique stores, we go into auction houses, but one of the things we do is we know how to get to the decision maker. There's always people and things in the way of you getting to the decision maker. So let's say you go to a rummage sale. It's a big one. A lot of times, there's more than one person there running the show. A lot of times, it can be kids running the show. It can be the spouse running the show. It can be somebody running the show that's selling somebody else's stuff. It can be multiple people's stuff there and another person selling it. Some of the best stuff that's at rummage sales is marked up. And when you ask about it, you find out that, oh no, I can't take less than $200 for that. But have you ever asked why? Well, some of the reasons are it's not mine, and they said don't go below $200. Or, you know, it's my dad's, and he passed away 5 years ago, and I saw it on eBay. Or, you know, whatever. We're talking about getting the decision maker here, though, and this isn't the greatest example, but there's many times I've seen other stuff at rummage sales that's not even for sale, and I'll ask about it, and the person will say, oh, I don't know if that's for sale. And I strike up a conversation with them, and I end up talking to the person down the street that it is their stuff, and they're like, well, I'm not selling that. That's on the wall. Like, I gave that to my brother-in-law here, and he loves it, but come to my basement. And they might have a basement full of beer signs or whatever, and half of them aren't for sale, and half of them are overpriced, but two of them, now wait a minute, half and half, that's all of them. Where's the other two coming from? Anyway, two of them are just what I'm after, and they're willing to part with them. And because I'm buying two, I got them cheaper. I ask a lot of questions. I talk to a lot of people. I try to get to the decision maker on anything. And, you know, you can bundle with them. You can talk about their eBay prices a little bit. How did you come up with this pricing? You can talk about, if you have a little knowledge on the subject, you can say it's a really nice violin. In fact, I've had a couple of these, and maybe you have, and that's why you say that. And they start perking their ears up because they don't know enough about it. And so you say, well, this is a medium quality. If it was a Falstaff, we would be talking $3,000-$4,000, and their eyes light up. And you say, but it's not. It's a Vega. And Vegas are good brands. I really like it. Look at here. This is quality. This part is nice. These strings are nice. This one's not so nice. You see how this is broken? You don't need to point out bad things, but you can say, this is in need of a little repair. And so you educate them a little bit. We do this with cameras all the time. And at the end of the conversation, we'll talk again about pricing, and a lot of times the pricing goes down a little bit. Or in the case of cameras, we now know a lot about cameras, and it's Wheeler. Wheeler's the camera guy. They start bringing more cameras out than you could ever imagine. The people that are sitting with them say, well, I've got a couple of cameras. And we're like, go get them. But you're not going to get into these conversations with people unless you get out of your comfort zone. The more people you talk to, the more places you go to. If you do the same stuff over and over again, you're going to get the same results. Now let's back up a little bit. What if you like what you're doing? I know I have people watching this channel that are more or less happy with the results. They like what they're doing. More power to you. Keep doing it. What I would recommend, though, is don't get too stagnant. Don't get too comfortable. Things can change. Tulip mania was there for a while. People were buying and selling tulips like they're going out of style. And then it died. Beanie Babies, Rubik's Cubes, whatever. Things come and go. And you do need to keep growing. You're growing or going in this business. And so Wheeler and I always buy stuff out of our wheelhouse. We always ask questions and talk to things. Anything that looks interesting, we'll try to figure out some stuff on it. We're not afraid to do that. Well, let me just see if there's anything I missed. Boy, I go into these talks, and I don't know if I have a plan. I don't know if I'd say I have a plan, but I have a topic and I have some things I want to cover, and it turns out a little differently than I thought it would when I started. There's no doubt about that. Maybe we should just cut it off. This is pretty long talk. I could go home and get a little quiet time with Lon and just go to sleep. That'd be better. That'd be better than talking about sourcing all night. I enjoy talking about this. I don't know if you guys understand. I get wound up, but that's just excitement. I like talking about it. I like sourcing. I like this business. If you're not excited about this business, I would recommend getting outside of your comfort zone a little bit and getting a few scores in the business. All right, here's another thing I want to talk about. You do have to have some money to buy stuff, okay? I would recommend having two things. The way we used to do it is we used to take pictures of things or write the thing down, and then we go back to our shop on eBay and look it up, right? We didn't actually buy the item, but we looked it up. We learned something from that process. Today, if you have a smartphone, you go out there, you can scan the thing, you can take a picture of it and take it back and look it up later. You can look it up right there. You need to have the ability to do that. So you got to get a phone contract that can do that. You got to have all that stuff in place. Have the ability to look stuff up, okay? Got to have some money that you can afford to spend on inventory. Take some risks. Make them smart ones by looking stuff up on your smartphone. Make a list of every possible place you can think of to buy stuff within your radius that you operate. Okay? Start going to these places. Start going to them systematically. Start talking to people. Start figuring out. And then just have your head on a swivel. I forget, Redneck Picker or something like that. I used to watch years ago. That guy just had his head on a swivel. Now, he was in some place that had population, right? His head was always on a swivel, you know. He found a lot of stuff. He was like, I don't know, I think he was getting a lot of things right off the road, like trash day or something. I don't know. He got into some crazy stuff. But there's more places to source than you think. I mean, really. And gosh, how do you find these if you're not familiar with them? I don't know. You just have to be as observant as you can be, and don't get caught in a rut. I know one technique we use. When we talk to people in all these places, we ask them, is there anybody else in the area that you know that sells this kind of stuff? And it might be your specialty. You're into, Tupperware bowls. Who else sells this stuff? Who else in this area carries this kind of stuff? They will know whether they tell you or not. It depends on how well you did your relationship with them and how well you communicated with them, but that just takes practice. We find a lot of cameras not in the initial contact, but the back end. And the back end is asking people, who do you know that has cameras? Who do you know that has something like this? People just start telling us. We're looking at business cards that are on all those boards of people that buy and sell. We look at the auctions. We're really good at taking it all in and deciphering it all down. Whew, I'm about out of steam. Boy, when I get some sleep, I tell you what. I didn't even think I could get this wound up today, but once I start talking, boy, that's it. Well, I hope this was of value to you. I don't know if this is the sourcing talk you wanted today, but it's some of the things that come to my mind, some of the things that I've learned, some of the things that we do. It's not everything, and it's just because it doesn't all come out, at one time. So I will keep talking and doing shows like this. The Sunday show, unless we go out and do something as a family, I like to film that for my kids to watch someday and for you to watch when we put it out. And it's just fun to film some of our adventures. Of course, it's winter now, so we aren't going out quite as many times. And in my day off show, I'm going to film something like this with a topic. So if you do have topics or questions, keep them coming. I read all those. I will have to pick some to talk about and some not to. I have some things of my own I like to talk about. Really, it's, I am trying to help. I'm trying to get the information out there. This buying and selling game is big enough for all of us. There's so much stuff out there. I have never had trouble finding stuff long term. Sure, there's a few little peaks and valleys, but I'll tell you what, here's another thing I do. I buy all the time. When there's stuff to buy, I buy it because I know there's a few peaks and valleys. I never run out of stuff to list. Never, ever, 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 ever. And if I tried harder, I could have 10 times the stuff I have now if I felt like listing 10 times as much, which I don't. But you can have the same problem if you want it. Some people don't want it. One last thing. If you're only looking for the good stuff, you're not going to find the good stuff. You need to be looking at everything until you get to the point where you're like a magnet for stuff Make every single stop you can. Stop at every single rummage sale, even though it looks like garbage. Stop at every single thrift store, even if it looks like it's a haunted house. Stop at each and every antique store, every flea market. Read every ad in the newspaper. Look at every ad on eBay for lots of stuff. On and on and on. Do it all. Do not miss anything until you become an expert. Make all the pots you can. You're graded on how many pots you make, not on one pot. That's my advice. Thanks for watching. Appreciate comments. Appreciate all the questions. Appreciate the thumbs up. We are growing as a channel. I appreciate that. I appreciate each and every one of you. And pick well, list often. Dealer out.
Hey, Wheeler.
Dealer Production.